get on with getting on, shall we, and speak to James Price, former Conservative government advisor. Gloucester Babber, as you all know if you listen regularly. Hello, good morning, my darling. Congratulations, can I just say. You've now got a proper missus, don't you?
I do indeed. This weekend, I've got a bit of bling on my hand for people who are watching the live stream as well. Very peculiar to have some jewelry on for the first time. I keep kind of clinking it against things and playing with it like I'm Gollum in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, well, congratulations. I'm chuffed for you. And, of course, your wife has a wonderful name as well, doesn't she?
Absolutely. Another Alexandra. More of them in the world that we can get, the better.
Exactly. There you are. And hopefully you'll go on to make lots of little Alexandras and we'll repopulate the planets with anti-woke warriors. Now, let's talk first of all about the tariffs, because the markets have plunged and everyone's strapped themselves in and buckled up for what could be a rough ride. What do you make of Donald Trump's tactics? Where do you think he's going with this? And are there going to be sunlit uplands?
It's a great couple of questions there. It's the exciting thing, I suppose, at the very least, is that we're back into the great man theory of history here. You've got Donald Trump upending decades of economic consensus. It's an enormous gamble. It's one he doesn't necessarily need to do. Many economists will be saying he definitely shouldn't have done it. And so it is at the very least going to be noteworthy to see if this is a gamble that pays off. I suppose to steelman his argument, that is to give it the best possible take. He has been consistent on this since the 1980s. He's always cared about trade deficits. Whether he should or shouldn't is another matter. But he's been very clear about this. He campaigned on a lot of this, and that other countries therefore should have taken notice and should have realized that if you have higher tariffs against America than America has on you, that time is over. It's a bit blooming rich to hear Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission president, saying, we didn't start this. This is really bad. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
The point of an EU customs union, as Alex, you all know well as a former MEP, is a big protectionist barrier around the European Union. And for a long time, tariffs on, say, American cars going into the EU were about 10%, and vice versa, it was only about 2%. And so you can see why Trump would be annoyed at something like that and feel in his gut that America was getting a bum deal on these things. So there's a level of rebalance there. You mentioned Israel, a great example of a country who are saying, okay, fine, enough of this, we'll take down our barriers. And I suppose it will be different for every country to see whether that is worthwhile or not, about protecting their own industries. But as a general rule, I think tariffs are a bad idea. I'd have to say that, or I wouldn't be allowed into various think tanks ever again. And
now,
it's a bit like me saying, I'm going to go to I've got a trade deficit with my dentist, so I'm going to charge myself 40% extra next time I go to the dentist until I've learned to do my own root canals. On the surface, not a very smart idea.
What is going to be the UK approach to this? Because what I keep hearing is the mood music is cool heads, pragmatic approach. We're going to go for a minimalist trade deal. But at the same time, they're also apparently drawing up a list of places they could add reciprocal tariffs. And on that list, I noticed, were golf courses, which would strike right to the heart of Trump's personal empire. I mean, frankly speaking, we wouldn't necessarily be facing these tariffs if we hadn't dragged into the post-Brexit era a load of EU alignment.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, first of all, it's great that we're outside the European Union for all sorts of reasons, but this is a massive one so far. It aligns Trump's obvious deep love for the United Kingdom. His mother was British. He talks very fondly about the royal family and the kind of cultural compatibility he feels with lots of this country. And we should make even more of that as we try and get to a proper trade deal. There was one on the table for a long time, and all this carping a bit about, oh, chlorinated chicken, all the rest of it.
Oh, chlorinated chicken.
If you don't like it, don't buy it. You better stop buying bags of salad in supermarkets because they're all washed in chlorine too.
This is what is so crazy. The chlorinated chicken thing, which is such a mental thing to be sort of bandied about. And there's all these screaming leftist Europhiles who just keep repeating chlorinated chicken, because they've heard it somewhere. And if you say, so what is wrong with that then? That's what the Americans do to make sure that there's no sort of salmonella on their chicken. That's just their approach, like we do with our salads. And actually, it's less chlorine than we put in the water supply. So what is wrong with this? They'll just go like, and then, it's because the way they raise their chickens is dirty. And I'm like, have you seen some of the practices that happen in Central Europe and Eastern Europe? It does seem to me to be some sort of ridiculous trope that's been bandied about. And frankly speaking, like you said, if foods are labelled, you get consumer choice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's just a level of kind of snobbish, anti-American sentiment to some of this stuff, right? We're all obsessed with America. I just married one, so I'm guilty of this too. But, everyone's obsessed with it, and they like to kind of look down their noses and think that, oh, the Continentals are so much more sophisticated and all this kind of complete nonsense. The fact that, as we just said, the EU has had huge tariffs on for a long time, and we've still got lots of those, as you say, on the statute. We still have tariffs against Morocco, despite the fact that for their tomatoes, despite the fact that we grow tomatoes at a completely different time of year to them. So food is more expensive than it needs to be in order to protect Spanish farmers, and when we're no longer in any kind of customs union. All that stuff can be it can be taken away very soon, alongside hopefully getting a free trade deal with the United States.
Wouldn't that be good? And, don't listen to the naysayers who say they're going to come after our NHS. That is ridiculous. If we can import American drugs and American medical technology without tariffs, wouldn't that be a brilliant thing? And equally, stop banging on about chlorinated chicken in Brussels. You created a donkey meat scandal, for crying out loud. I mean, remember that? When people going into their Findus crispy pancakes or whatever, I don't know if it was, sorry, Findus, but, people going to get their ready meals and they found out that, Betsy, the former mayor that a little girl was riding, was part of that makeup. Absolutely grotesque. Now, talking about something else that's been absolutely grotesque is 5 years of Starmer as the Labour Party leader. What do you think have been his highlights? I mean, he has, I suppose, if we wanted to sing him a little bit of praise, brought stability to that entity in the post-Corbyn era, had the night of the long knives, flushed out all of the momentum lot, and did create an election-winning machine, helped a little bit, or perhaps a lot, by his opponents being utterly useless and despised. But I suppose we can praise him for sort of dragging the Labour Party back into a sort of, electoral territory that more people might find palatable.
Yeah, that's the one silver lining perhaps you could possibly give him on this. And I will give him credit for that. I think people forget just how awful the Labour Party was before Starmer came along. It's faint praise, but it's praise nonetheless, to suggest that it is no longer an explicitly racist party that it was under Jeremy Corbyn. Jewish friends of mine considering where to go to leave the country to flee if Corbyn came into power. Jeremy Corbyn was just genuinely out and out anti-Semitic, and I think the Labour Party was found to be institutionally anti-Semitic. And, for a bunch of lefties whose biggest crime in the world would be if somebody were to call them racist, to be so openly racist against Jewish people, it beggars belief, and it feels a long way away from that. So, okay, Starmer gets points for bringing Labour out of being the most explicitly racist party in Western Europe. Okay, great job. Other than that, what have they got to praise themselves for? The best person they've got in terms of understanding the private sector fibbed about her career, and yet is still the only person with any private sector experience. This is Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, whose budget has been so disastrous. It's been worse, I think, over the long term for gilt markets than Liz Truss's was. We are seeing absolutely anemic growth, none at all, debt spiralling. We've seen smash the gangs policy. Well, all we've done is smash records on the gangs. We've seen David Lammy as Foreign Secretary. I don't even know how to start with that.
Don't.
Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. She's the one to watch, the quiet one, doing the most destructive policies imaginable, sacrificing your children and grandchildren's future on the altar of her own personal political ambition. And that's before we even start talking about Ed Miliband.
Oh, gosh, I'd rather not talk about him. I haven't got the stomach for it this morning. But what we have done here in Talk Towers is make a jolly little montage for you to enjoy. Shall we have a little look? This is Starmer's best gaffes.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump.
Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner.
The relationship between our two nations has been one of collaboration. I'm anti-Trump, cooperation. But don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected, and enduring partnership. Never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. I'm delighted that the inspiring Nobel Peace Nobel Prize winner.
True democracy is citizen-led. We demand a people's house!
This project has always been about fixing the foundations of our country. It must be really incredible to be part of building, actually here, not just building. smash the gangs, to smash the people smuggling gangs.
Could you please join me when I say 5?
That man is not allowed in my pub.
4.
That's assault.
3.
That man is not allowed in my pub.
2.
Get out of my pub. Go on.
1.
Get out of my pub.
Yay! It worked.
Way! It worked. I can see the voice coach did a really good job on him just on Christmas Eve, didn't she?
Where to begin? I mean, I forgot the release the sausages one. Where on earth did that come from? I know he's supposed to be technically a vegetarian, so I wonder if it's perhaps he's sort of wistfully remembering the days of eating.
I don't know, he's technically a vegetarian. That makes him worse. Oh, God. Oh, there I was thinking at least he might be a meat eater. Now you've made him a vegetarian. He's like getting even closer to being Hitler. Now,
I think the problem is that he's either got no ideology on certain areas, which is why things are going so wrong in these ways, and the Treasury officials are getting away with taking away winter fuel payments and scaring people, or there is this kind of hard left streak in him from his younger days when he said he didn't love the Queen or any of this sort of stuff that just allows people in his cabinet to go and do things that are long-term destructive for the interests of this country, whether it's giving away sovereign territory, destroying our farms, destroying our education, making energy the most expensive in the developed world, and all for what? For absolutely no end at all. I'm not sure whether I want him to be an evil left-wing zealot, or it's scarier that he's got absolutely no beliefs whatsoever.
I know, it's quite difficult to decide which camp he's in. I'll tell you what, though, the Americans are absolutely obsessed with free speech, and apparently any sort of deal they do with us will be with reassurances that we're going to get free speech back in Britain. So bring that little battle on, I say. Now, I want to talk about our young people, because there's something very wrong with them, isn't there, James? I don't want to degrade them or denigrate them, but you've got 500,000 young people between 18 and 25 who have never worked, and most of them are saying they never want to work because, well, they're just not mentally capable of it. How on earth? Apparently, when it comes to all the young people in developed nations, we've got the most useless, feckless and timid. How has this happened? How have we created a generation of work-shy, anxious, hermit-like creatures?
You paint such a picture there. It's really upsetting, isn't it? I think COVID or specifically the government's response, copying the Communist Party of China's response to lock everybody down, to tell people that school wasn't actually that important after all, even though if young people got the virus, there was almost no actually negative impact on them, and telling them right now that it's fine, you don't have to go to school, don't worry about it, and you don't need to work because the government has all the money it needs out of somewhere to be able to pay people to stay at home. Of course, now we're paying back all of those loans and we're completely bankrupt as a nation as a result of it. I think those are sort of the mood music around this.
Yeah, a lot of people did, a lot of countries did the sort of Chinese Communist Party's approach to COVID. There's got to be something else about what's happened in Britain specifically, which has created this situation.
I think actually no, I think there are similar trends are happening in a few other places like America as well, where you get this phrase, people going goblin mode. I've heard my nieces and nephews talk about, which is again this idea, as you say, of being all hermit-like and not bothering to make yourself up all pretty or put some nice clothes on and just kind of rotting away in bed playing on your phone. I think the phones are a big part of it, especially something like TikTok. Again, goes back to the Chinese Communist Party. If you've got TikTok, get off. The Chinese are spying on you. And the way that it could just rot your brain and destroy your attention span. And then I think a lot of it is the overly generous nature of our welfare system. The fact that something like 25% of people in this country are now technically classed as being disabled. I think that makes the idea of disabled completely meaningless. And I think that it makes it more difficult for taxpayers to support those who are in genuine need. Someone like my uncle, who suffered from multiple sclerosis, couldn't move any of his limbs. Obviously, no one is suggesting that he deserves anything other than compassion and support and help. But someone going, oh, I feel a bit sad, I'm not going to bother to go into work or any of this kind of stuff. Those people need to realise that the best social welfare programme in the world world was getting a job, as Ronald Reagan said.
De-goblinification, because goblinification is not some sort of protected trait or some sort of long list of conditions that you can get welfare from. Get into the workplace, have a gossip at the water cooler, socialise and then go for a pint afterwards. That is the recipe for success. James Price, always wonderful catching up with you, my baba. Sorry as well to learn about your uncle with MS. I lost my own uncle to that cruel, awful disease. So my greatest sympathy to you on that.